Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has added the warning of rare risk of heart inflammation on Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. The fact sheets were revised to include a warning of possible myocarditis and pericarditis after the second dose of the Western vaccine brands. Health regulators in several countries have been investigating cases of myocarditis and pericarditis among those who got Pfizer and Moderna shots. Of the 300 million mRNA doses administered in the United States, only around 1,200 cases of myocarditis and pericarditis have been reported. Now, to discuss more about this latest development, joining us is Dr. Tony Leachon, a former National COVID-19 Task Force Advisor. Dr. Leachon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Risa. Good afternoon.
Dr. Tony, being a cardiologist yourself, can we get more details about myocarditis and pericarditis?
Myocarditis is basically an inflammation of the muscle of the heart, and pericarditis is inflammation of the covering of the heart. We call it pericardium. And this is particularly common in patients with viral infection. And these are usually not severe conditions and may be self-limiting in certain cases. Now, the reports of myocarditis and pericarditis are basically part of the vaccine adverse event reporting system done by the US FDA to monitor certain adverse events that will occur in patients after vaccine. This is part of the reporting system, and so that they will inform the public and revise the product label change as you go to the full approval. Remember that you are on emergency utilization approval, and therefore you have to finish all the clinical trials and the studies. Now, part of this is actually reporting in the real world certain adverse events which may actually be related or not related to the particular vaccine. Now, based on the studies, despite having 300 million doses vaccination in the United States, there were only 1,200 reports of myocarditis and pericarditis, basically in young males, and they are very, very rare, and this would be put in the product label so that you will warn and alert the vaccinees later on. But this is just basically part of the post-marketing surveillance studies being done by any pharmaceutical company. And this is just basically for safety reporting system.
Doc, why do Pfizer and Moderna vaccines in particular have this sort of side effect?
Risa, can you repeat the question?
Yes, Dr. Tony would like to know how come or why do Pfizer and Moderna in particular have this sort of side effect?
This is perhaps peculiar to the mRNA vaccine. This may be due to the platform they sharing, the mRNA. If you remember, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, they have the same platform, the adenovirus vector platform. And the first adverse event related to these particular drugs, including Gamaleya or the Sputnik, they belong to the same platform, is the presence of rare blood clots. And that was the reason why for 2 weeks, the local FDA suspended the vaccination for AstraZeneca but it was cleared already. And then if you remember in the United States, Janssen or Johnson and Johnson uh, uh, vaccine was suspended for one or 2 weeks before it was cleared by the FDA. So basically, you want to alert this the public, but basically these are rare adverse events, and you weigh right now the benefits over the risk because the need for the particular vaccines is actually extreme. The need for these particular vaccines, the mRNA, and of course the platform of AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson are very great. So therefore, you will not pull out this drug into the market. So basically, that's it. So certain drugs may have different adverse event in the real world. So right now, we know that for mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, you have rare side effects like myocarditis and pericarditis. Now, for adenovirus vector platform, that's AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, you can have rare blood clots, which will be present in about 0.004% or 4 in 1 million cases. So, and that was the reason why it was cleared. Just basically, that will be the same thing that will be happening for this one.
Dr. Tony, given these latest developments, how do you think should the FDA and the Department of Health handle this issue?
Well, they just have to adopt the US FDA report because this will be consistent across the globe. And Pfizer and Moderna will just revise their package insert, and they would report to all the regulatory agencies where these particular vaccines have been launched. That's basically it. No big deal actually, and this would just alert us doctors on how to use the drugs. And if ever there would be some occurrence in our patients, then we are alerted as to how we will address and treat the patients accordingly. But this would not deter us from using these particular drugs, like for example for Astra, in our country is very useful, and also for Pfizer and then even Moderna later on. But some countries like in Europe, there were countries that actually discontinued the use of AstraZeneca because the regulatory agencies think that it would be beneficial to their population, but that's their call. In my understanding, the myocarditis and the pericarditis is only a small fraction of the whole adverse events of the patients, and I think this quality vaccine should be continued because of the tremendous need of the population right now.
Well, thank you, Doc, for giving us a lot of clarification. Maraming salamat. That's Dr. Tony Liachon, a former National COVID-19 Task Force Advisor. Now, more than 1,000 seafarers were inoculated against COVID-19 yesterday in Las Piñas City. Most of them were administered with Pfizer doses, as this was the required brand in most areas of deployment. Meanwhile, the domestic farers were jabbed with Sinovac. The city's inoculation drive was part of the Maritime Industry Authority's simultaneous nationwide vaccination of Filipino seafarers who were among the most affected by the pandemic. And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Environmental groups are pursuing legal action against several government agencies and officials for supposed failure to address plastic pollution. Marine conservation group Oceana said notices to sue were served to the National Solid Waste Management Commission and the Departments of Environment, Trade and Industry, Science and Technology, among others. Its Vice President Gloria Estenzo Ramos called out the agencies for their supposedly inaction in implementing the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act. The group also chided officials for what it described as apathy to the rising plastic pollution in the country. Meanwhile, the NLEX Corporation targets to start the construction of the 2-kilometer expressway in Quezon City by the second half of the year. The construction of the expressway between Mindanao Avenue, Toll Plaza, and Quirino Highway cost around 2 billion pesos. Once completed, the section will be an avenue for expansion of NLEX going to C5 near Katipunan Avenue. It is expected to trim the travel time from the usual 45 minutes to just 10 minutes for 45,000 motorists. Now here are other stories we're keeping our eyes around the world. The death toll from the collapse of a 12-story building in Florida has now risen to 5. The number of people missing still at 156. Search and rescue operations are still underway as authorities believe the people missing are still alive. British Health Minister Matt Hancock steps down from his post after he was caught breaking COVID-19 protocols. This after he was caught kissing and embracing an aide inside his office, sparking nationwide clamor for him to quit his post. Hancock will be replaced by former Finance Minister Sajid David. And Sydney, Australia goes back into lockdown for 2 weeks. This after the state of New South Wales reported 30 new cases of COVID, bringing the number of Delta variant cases to 110. Darwin City, meanwhile, imposes a hard 2-day lockdown after reporting 4 new cases. With tighter restrictions, residents can only leave their homes for essential shopping, work, education, and medical care. Now, for more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now, www.signalplay.com, and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.